A man by the name of Vladimir Lenin is typing in an office. Joined by 10 or so other men and women, they are publishing Iskra, a secret newspaper designed by Lenin for the creation of a revolution to topple the Russian monarchy. Iskra preached the benefits of socialism and the need for the Russian people to be united against the corruption of the monarchy.
Lenin and his Bolshevik party as well produced this newspaper, of course, as a weapon to create the consciousness to the people to revolt.
Back in Russia, the ruling monarch, Tsar Nicholas II, oversaw the construction of factories to facilitate the industrialization of Russia. But poor working conditions made workers protest. They claimed that their work was funding the corruption of government officials and not improving the living standard of the people. To solve this problem, Tsar Nicholas II saw an opportunity to increase public approval by going to war with Japan in the Far East to increase territorial claims in Manchuria, which he saw as a way to rebuild his reputation.
So compared to other countries in Europe, actually Russia is quite backward in terms of their development and economy as well.
However, Russia greatly underestimated the military strength of Japan's empire. Less than a year after the war started, Russia was forced to pull out of the war. To stop the war, Russia had to sign the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which made Russia lose a big part of its land in East Asia. This was all too much for the people to bear. In St. Petersburg, tens of thousands of workers gathered outside the Winter Palace, the residence of Tsar Nicholas II, for peaceful protests demanding more political rights and freedom after years of economic mismanagement and heavy war losses abroad. Troops opened fire on them instead, and more than 1,000 people are dead or injured. The people blame it on the monarchy, and as a result, more and more demonstrations are staged. This would later become known as Bloody Sunday. Under pressure from the people, Nicholas II approved the October Manifesto, which created the Duma. Basically, a Duma was an elected assembly that gave a voice to the people when creating laws.
From the absolute monarchy, it changed the system to become more parliamentarian.
However, the Duma did not exist for long. In 1917, a little more than a decade after its formation, it was dissolved by the monarchy. As it turned out, it was just a temporary plan to end the protests and uprisings that had threatened the Tsar's position before. With the return of soldiers from abroad, the monarchy was able to punish those who had been responsible for the uprising. Hundreds of acres of peasant land were destroyed. Back in Europe, Lenin was furious, but he could do nothing but watch as the Tsar put more suffering on the Russian people. He held constant meetings with the Socialist Party that was responsible for spreading propaganda through the underground newspaper to find ways to topple the monarchy and infuse his socialist ideas into society. It was split into two factions, the Menshevik, which was the majority, and the Bolsheviks, the minority. Lenin, who was the leader of the Bolsheviks, wanted a full-on revolution, while the more passive Mensheviks wanted a gradual change to parliamentary democracy. Because of this, conflicts were common, and the Bolsheviks grew more apart than ever from the Mensheviks. However, the Bolsheviks were quickly running out of money and resources. It was at this time that Lenin met the infamous Joseph Stalin at a Bolshevik state conference. They became close friends because Stalin was able to fund the Bolshevik parties by looting peasant land. He also organized propaganda campaigns to help the Bolsheviks. Together, the pair made the Bolshevik party more powerful than ever before.
People suffer because of the exploitation, not only from the monarchy, but also from the feudal or the landlord at the time in Russia.
World War I had broken out, and the Russian people were on the losing end of a war again. Fighting the German army on the western fronts of Russia left many civilians hungry and poor. But to make matters worse, the soldiers weren't winning the war either. With the soldiers too weak to fight, many deserted to the capital, where the army joined the people in forcing the Tsar to abdicate. With no choice and the army against him, Tsar Nicholas II abdicated, putting an end to over 400 years of Tsarist rule in Russia. Meanwhile, Lenin and his Bolshevik party returned to Russia from Europe. They began the process of removing the government that had ruled after the abdication of the Tsar. This was later known as the Bolshevik Revolution. To get the support of the people, they promised three things to the people if they took power: peace, land, and bread. The support for them was so great that several Mensheviks, the opposition to the Bolsheviks, began switching sides. One of the men that had left the Mensheviks for the Bolsheviks was a man named Leon Trotsky. In later years, he was essential in Lenin's fulfillment of the famous slogan, negotiating war deals and peace terms. Less than a decade later, Lenin falls severely ill. He dies not long after, suffering a severe coma, on the 21st of January 1924. Russia was about to enter a new era, the start of World War II.